Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our HEDCen Talks 2020-2021 series. Okay, we are going to give a few more moments for participants to come in. And in the meantime, we would like to share with you a few video clips that are relevant to our
everyone. Thank you for
discussion for this afternoon.
HEDCen Talks 2020.
This is a story about a world obsessed with stuff. It's a story about a system in crisis. We're trashing the planet, we're trashing each other, and we're not even having fun. The good thing is that when we start to understand the system, we start to see lots of places to step in and turn these problems into solutions. One of the problems with trying to use less stuff is that sometimes we feel like we really need it. What if you live in a city like, say, Cleveland, and you want a glass of water? Are you going to take your chances and get it from the city tap? Or should you reach for a bottle of water that comes from the pristine rainforest of Fiji? Well, Fiji brand water thought the answer to this question was obvious, so they built a whole ad campaign around it. It turned out to be one of the dumbest moves in advertising history. You see, the city of Cleveland didn't like being the butt of Fiji's jokes, so they did some tests, and guess what? These tests showed a glass of Fiji water is lower quality, it loses taste tests against Cleveland Tap, and costs thousands of times more. This story is typical of what happens when you test bottled water against tap water. Is it cleaner? Sometimes not. In many ways, bottled water is less regulated than tap. Is it tastier? In taste tests across the country, people consistently choose tap over bottled water. These bottled water companies say they're just meeting consumer demand. But who would demand a less sustainable, less tasty, way more expensive product, especially when you can get for almost free in your kitchen? Bottled water
is about 2,000 times more than tap water.
Can you imagine paying 2,000 times the price of anything else? How about a $10,000 sandwich? Yet people in the U.S. buy more than 500 million bottles of water every week. That is enough to circle the globe more than 5 times. How did this come to be? Well, it all goes back to how our materials economy works, and one of its key drivers, which is known as manufactured demand. If companies want to keep growing, they have to keep selling more and more stuff. In the 1970s, giant soft drink companies got worried as they saw their growth projections starting to level off. There's only so much soda a person can drink. Plus, it wouldn't be long before people began realizing soda is not that healthy and turned back to, gasp, drinking tap water. Well, the companies found their next big idea in a silly designer product that most people laughed off as a passing yuppie fad. Water is free, people said back then. What will they sell us next? Air? So how do you get people to buy this fringe product? Simple. You manufacture demand. How do you do that? Well, imagine you're in charge of a bottled water company. Since people aren't lining up to trade their hard-earned money for your unnecessary product, you make them feel scared and insecure if they don't have it. And that's exactly what the bottled water industry did. One of their first marketing tactics was to scare people about tap water with ads like Fiji's Cleveland campaign. When we're done, one top water executive said, tap water will be relegated to showers and washing dishes. Next, you hide the reality of your product behind images of pure fantasy. Have you ever noticed how bottled water tries to seduce us with pictures of mountain streams and pristine nature? But guess where a third of all bottled water in the U.S. actually comes from? The tap. Pepsi's Aquafina and Coke's Dasani are two of the many brands that are really filtered tap water. But the pristine nature lie goes much deeper. In a recent full-page ad, Nestle said, bottled water is the most environmentally responsible consumer product in the world. What? They are trashing the environment all along the product's life cycle. Exactly how is that environmentally responsible? The problems start here with extraction and production, where oil is used to make water bottles. Each year, making the plastic water bottles used in the US takes enough oil and energy to fuel 1 million cars. All that energy spent to make the bottle, even more to ship it around the planet, and then we drink it in about 2 minutes? That brings us to the big problem at the other end of the life cycle, disposal. What happens to all these bottles when we're done? 80% end up in landfills, where they will sit for thousands of years, or in incinerators, where they are burned, releasing toxic pollution. The rest gets collected for recycling. I was curious about where the plastic bottles that I put in the recycling bins go. I found out that shiploads were being sent to India, so I went there. I will never forget riding over a hill outside Madras, where I came face to face with a mountain of plastic bottles from California. Now, real recycling would turn these bottles back into bottles. But that wasn't what was happening here. Instead, these bottles were slated to be downcycled, which means turning them into lower quality products that would just be chucked later. The parts that couldn't be downcycled were thrown away there, shipped all the way to India just to be dumped in someone else's backyard. If bottled water companies want to use mountains on their labels, it would be more accurate to show one of these mountains of plastic waste. Scaring us, seducing us, and misleading us. These strategies are all core parts of manufacturing demand. Once they've manufactured all this demand, creating a new multi-billion-dollar market, they defend it by beating out the competition. But in this case, the competition is our basic human right to clean, safe drinking water. Pepsi's vice chairman publicly said, "The biggest enemy is tap water." They want us to think it's dirty and bottled water is the best alternative. In many places, public water is polluted, thanks to polluting industries like the plastic bottle industry. And these bottled water guys are all too happy to offer their expensive solutions, which keep us hooked on their products. It is time we took back the tap. That starts with making a personal commitment to not buy or drink bottled water unless the water in your community is truly unhealthy. Yes, it takes a bit of foresight to grab a reusable bottle on the way out, but I think we can handle it. Then take the next step. Join a campaign that's working for real solutions, like demanding investment in clean tap water for all. In the US, tap water is underfunded by $24 billion, partly because people believe drinking water only comes from a bottle. Around the world, 1 billion people don't have access to clean water right now. Yet cities all over are spending millions of dollars to deal with all the plastic bottles we throw out. What if that money was spent improving our water systems, or better yet, preventing pollution to begin with? There are many more things we can do to solve this problem. Lobby your city officials to bring back drinking fountains. Work to ban the purchase of bottled water by your school, your organization, or entire city. This is a huge opportunity for millions of people to wake up and protect our wallets, our health, and the planet. The good news is it's already started. Bottled water sales have begun to drop while business is booming for safe, refillable water bottles. Yay! Restaurants are proudly serving tap, and people are choosing to pocket the hundreds or thousands of dollars they would otherwise be wasting on bottled water. Carrying bottled water is on its way to being as cool as smoking while pregnant. We know better now. The bottled water industry is getting worried because the jig is up. We are not buying into their manufactured demand anymore. We will choose our own demands, thank you very much, and we're demanding clean, safe water for all.
Hello, everyone, back again. And I hope we learned something from that video clip on bottled water. And it's very much related to the topic this evening, which is going to be shared.
This is a story about a world obsessed with stuff.
Okay,
It's a story about a system.
Turn something off, sorry. Okay, there you go. And it is very much related, as I was saying, to what our student presenters from the Holistic Education and Development Center will be sharing with us this evening, their environmental advocacies. Okay. We'd like to begin with the first student presenter, Ulrich Torres, whom we call Sir Ulrich. Sir Ulrich, are you there? There you are.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sir Ulrich, would you like to share a few words? Tell us who you are before we share your presentation.
Okay, so I'm 18 years old and I've been in HEDCen since 7th grade. And even before that, I've always liked animals. It first started with dogs, but as I grew older, I watched a lot of Nat Geo and Discovery Channel. So yeah, that's where my interest started, I guess. So yun lang.
Yes. Thank you, Sir Ulrich, for sharing something, a little something about yourself. Okay, let's move on to watching Sir Ulrich's video.
Hello everyone, my name is Ulrich.
Hello everyone, my name is Ulrich Torres, a grade 12 student from HEDCen under the Life Science Research track. And thank you for taking the time again to join us on our talk this evening. The theme for these talks would be on industries that live on the principles of the 4 Rs: refuse, reduce, reuse, and recycle. In addition to those four, we may choose to remind others about the 4 Rs. We are all familiar with these practices, but to what extent? By now, most people know to avoid using plastic bags and plastic straws. There have even been movements globally to prevent usage of those two items. But those are only a few products that are made up of plastic. The focus on those two items somehow makes us forget how many more items we use on a daily that have plastics in them. Examples of these would be clothes, which can contain polyester, and soda cans that are also lined with plastic inside. And lastly, children's toys. In my talk, I'd like to focus on children's toys. This company in particular called Green Toys, a US-based company that recycles plastics for creating children's toys. This company is well known for its transparency and ideals when it comes to being eco-friendly. Their products are only made out of food-grade recycled plastics, and they can only use recycled cardboard for their packaging. And they refrain from using unnecessary packaging such as styrofoam stuffing and plastic wrapping. All the recycled materials they use are sourced from the US only. This prevents the unnecessary use of fossil fuels for transporting materials from abroad. They were also awarded for their strict standards in only using safe plastics to create their toys, as not all recycled materials are safe for making toys. There are many cases of toys causing adverse effects to children. Many companies worldwide like to cut corners to reduce costs. A common practice done is to use lead in creating their plastics in order to make it more flexible. Lead in plastic and toys is not necessarily harmful, but as kids are in their developmental stage, they tend to chew on things, including lead-infused toys. Consumption of lead can cause lead poisoning. In children, this may cause developmental impairment, learning difficulties, seizures, coma, and even death. In the US alone, approximately 310,000 kids aged 1 to 5 have blood levels at which harmful effects are known to occur. Lead poisoning also has no obvious symptoms, making it even more so dangerous. Despite all these better ways of making toys safer through sustainable methods, it still impacts our environment. No matter what method they may use, creating and reshaping plastic still consumes tons of energy, while also creating lots of toxins. This company is also built on the premise that plastic is forever prevalent, as it relies on existing plastic to create their toys. Not to say this company's practice is bad, but rather it is a start. This method may seem to be only applicable in the US, as they have the means to create toys from recycled materials without cutting corners, which is rather costly and unnecessary from a business standpoint. Now let us consider if this type of company was in the Philippines. As a third world country, we have a big issue with managing our plastic waste. Not much try to capitalize on that, as here we see it as another man's trash is another man's trash. It may even do more harm than good if they do not follow proper recycling of plastic. In a statement by the Eco Waste Coalition, they called out the government to revamp recycling protocols, as many highly toxic chemicals are found in children's toys. They pointed out that the chemical dioxin, one of the world's most toxic chemicals, is extremely harmful even in minimal amounts. The levels of which this chemical is at concern is a tenth of a picogram. In children's toys, they found that there were thousands of picograms per gram in toy samples. To put that into perspective, 1 picogram is a billionth of a gram, and the level of concern is a tenth of that. And in the toys they sampled, they found that they had thousands of picograms of dioxin per gram. Now, if then that issue is resolved, I can say that this can be done in the Philippines. Though as of now, there are no companies that are similar to Green Toys in the Philippines. Though there are some people that do. This person in particular, Roel Naanip, an OFW architect, has created many toys and works that were entirely made of recycled materials. Here are some examples of his work. In an interview, he says that what I'm doing is not just for aesthetic purposes. I can say that I'm hitting 3 birds with one stone. First, I share my talent for art. Second, recycling. And third, opening people's eyes on this disappearing wildlife caused by climate change and us humans. He says that his goal is to inspire people and raise awareness about what our actions to the environment do and that waste can still be used meaningfully. Now, with all that, a business like Green Toys can certainly be made here in the Philippines if done right. That is all for my part. Thank you for listening. Hello, everyone. My
Okay, thank you very much, Sir Ulrich, for those interesting ideas you presented on sustainable toys. Okay, I invite everyone, if you have questions for our presenter, to use the chat in the Zoom and the chat in the live stream service. And our moderators, our student presenters will be fielding those questions in a little while. So we will be viewing all of their presentations first, and then we can have some questions for our student presenters. Okay. Once again, thank you very much, Sir Ulrich, for that wonderful presentation. Moving on to our second presenter, Miss Brianna Rodriguez. Brianna, are you there?
Hello, yes,
Yes.
sir.
Hello. Okay, Brianna, how are you?
Okay, I'm good.
Would you like to mention or introduce yourself? Say something about your interests, perhaps, to our guests tonight.
Okay. Hi, I'm Brianna from grade 12. I love walking around the nature while listening to bird chirps. Since I basically grew up in HEDCen, I've already adapted how strong the school's advocacy is for the environment since I've experienced stuff. I've experienced like learning outside the classroom that is related to the environment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Miss Brianna. And now we would like to share Miss Brianna's presentation. Again, for those of you who have questions for our student presenters, we invite you to post them in the chat here in Zoom, as well as the chat in our live streaming service.
Good day, I am Brianna Rodriguez from Grade 12 Leonardo da Vinci, and today I will be talking about electronic e-waste recycling. E-scrap or e-waste is the trash generated from electronic devices that contains chemicals. So if it is not disposed properly, it may cause harm to the environment and the people. That is why people have thought of the term e-waste or electronics recycling. About 500 million unused devices are just dumped in people's homes. Cell phones, laptops, tablets, TVs, and other electronic devices are sold to 25% of the population annually. And most of those devices every year reach the end of their lifespan. And in those 500 million unused devices, they only end up in landfills, and only about 20% of them get recycled. According to a UN study, about 500 million tons of unused devices are discarded worldwide that still contains copper, tin, iron, aluminum, fossil fuels, titanium, gold, and silver. On the other hand, plastics, metals, and glass can and should be recovered, reused, and recycled. In a report, Apple revealed that they recovered 2,204 pounds of gold that costs about $40 million from their devices that they reviewed in 2015. And now, what is the problem? Today, due to the technology advancement, more and more parts are getting added. And even though that those parts are supposed to strengthen the device has a shorter lifespan because the companies that produce them either update the software design or discontinue support for the older ones. And now the older ones have a cheaper price, so and people agrees that it is much more easier to buy a new one than to just repair the unused devices. And now since there is a price drop, more and more people have access to such devices. And globally, as of now, half have access to those. So now the e-waste recycling process is composed of 7 parts. First is the collection and transportation. They install collection bins or take back booths in specific locations and transport collected e-waste to recycling facilities. After the collection and transportation of e-waste, the next step is to shred, sort, and separate. Shredding involves breaking the e-waste to smaller pieces for better sorting. Manually, they sort the tiny parts and dismantle them. This is usually labor intensive as the items are being separated to retrieve more parts. After the materials are categorized to core materials and components. These includes items that can get reused because these parts require further recycling processes. Remember that e-wastes are often sorted by hand, but parts such as the batteries and cartridges should not be sorted out manually. Next is dust extraction. The tiny particles get smoothly spread via the conveyor belt. These e-waste pieces get broken down further. The dust that is extracted is discarded in an environmental friendly way. Next is magnetic separation. After being broken down into smaller particles, a magnet helps separate the steel and iron from the other waste. This way, the steel is already recycled from the waste stream. Though in other processes, it may be required that the circuit board, copper, and aluminum get separated from other wastes, especially when those wastes are plastic. Next is water separation. It comes into the process by separating the glass from the plastic. Heads that contain glass can be sent to the smelters in order to produce products such as batteries, brand new batteries, and ray tubes. Sixth is the waste stream purification. After the separation of the glass from the plastic, the next step is to locate and extract metals from plastics and purify the waste stream further. The final stage is preparing recycled materials for sale. Here, the materials separated during the first processes get prepared for sale as raw materials to produce new electronics or new products. Now I have come up with a list of international and local associations that accept unused devices. The Institute of Recycling Industries, Coalition for American Electronics Recycling, European Electronics Recyclers Association, and Electronic Products Recycling Association. Now, for the local counterpart, these um, companies accept unused devices. HMR Super Plus Bodega, Project One Phone, that is by Globe, E-Waste Management Philippines, the E-Waste Project by the University of the Philippines, and EnviroCycle Philippines Incorporated. And now I also have decided to look deeper into ERA and EnviroCycle Philippines Incorporated. ERA is an association of reuse, recycling, and reprocessing companies in Europe that deals with waste electrical and electronic equipments. They prioritize that WEEE is managed as a resource and is returned as an equipment for reuse or as a raw material. On the other hand, the EnviroCycle Philippines Incorporated has a vision to not produce any polluting equipment that will then be deposited into a landfill. We accept donations not just e-waste but also capable of handling busted lamps, used lead batteries, toners, cartridges, used oil, and many more. They are accredited by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources as a treatment, storage, and disposal or TSD facility and are also the only full-service processor of e-waste in the Philippines that is equipped to handle all types of electronic waste streams. Their personnel undergoes training in DENR and are duly accredited. Now I have come up with a common list of pros and cons for international and local companies. First, it builds a stronger economy that creates more jobs for people. It helps business owners to save up money for other useful stuff as recycling reusable parts from electronic devices cuts costs in energy usage. It also minimizes the need for a big number of raw materials that owners will buy locally or internationally. Shipping fee is expensive, you know. Second, it conserves limited natural resources. Most business owners nowadays want to be unique. That is why they find the most unique natural resources that they can, cut from. And now they don't have to because they have parts from electronic devices. Third, it produces good profit for small and big enterprises. Fourth, it saves landfills. Companies that accept e-waste donations that will be converted to raw materials or new products will be the ones keeping them. People won't need to just dump it anywhere and throw once they think it can't be used again. Lastly, it reduces global warming. For the cons, both locally and internationally, there are no safety laws and people are unaware of e-waste management. It also creates pollution as factories of those companies produces gas that may also harm the environment. Now, what can we do as students? First, we don't need to buy devices right away. We always have the option to bring them to repair shops. It's much more cheaper to repair than to buy a new one. Yeah, repair. Before recycling, make sure that it doesn't look like this and make sure that it is sealed to avoid leakage of the toxic chemicals. Lastly, find a responsible recycler. Either find those collection bins or bring them personally to the companies who accept unused devices. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you are now more aware of the problems that unused devices can bring to us and the environment.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Brianna, for that enlightening presentation on e-waste. It's very interesting, and hopefully our viewers have learned a few insights from your presentation on how to handle their electronic waste. Once again, questions if you have questions for our viewers, for our student presenters, very much welcome to chat in our Zoom or to chat in our live stream. Okay, moving on to the last, but certainly not the least presenter in this series is Mayumi Barcena. Miss Mayumi, are you here?
Hi, sir.
Hello, Mayumi. Yes, good evening. And before we play your presentation for our audience, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Okay. So I'm Mayumi. I'm 18 years old and I love fashion. But I have been in HEDCen ever since I was young, so it is my first school and it really contributed to the development of my liking or my advocacy in environmental awareness. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Now let's all hang on. We need to admit a few more participants coming in. That's wonderful. Okay, let's now watch and learn from the presentation of Miss Barcen.
Hi, my name's Mayumi. I wanted to share something about sustainable fashion. Plastic bottles are used as a way to store liquids. Not all people know that it is recyclable. Most individuals use it because it is convenient. But plenty of human beings are still not aware that it is now being overused. In fact, every minute, 1 million bottles are bought around the world, which means that in a day, at least 1 billion bottles are being used and thrown away right after. Instead of recycling these bottles, plenty of individuals decide to throw them away, which results in about 60 million bottles being dumped in a landfill daily. Girlfriend Collective was founded by Ellie Din and husband Kwang Din. Ellie was not able to find any activewear that was ethically made, so they thought that it was a market opportunity for them to create and sell eco-friendly activewear. And every piece of clothing that their brand produces is made from 25 used plastic bottles. These bottles are from Taiwan. The nylon and yarn used in creating these clothes are made out of discarded fish nets. Their brand also uses eco-friendly dye for their activewear. The wastewater from the coloring process of these clothes are always cleaned before donating them to pavement facilities, wherein they turn them into sidewalks and roads. From hang tags, pouches, threads used, boxes, and prints. These are all recycled, eco-friendly, and recyclable. For the prints in their packaging, they use flexography and foil stamping method, which are both eco-friendly because they use solvent-free inks, which reduces the use of volatile organic chemical emissions. For their customers to have a better understanding on how they create their products, they share the locations of their factories. In Taiwan, this is where they convert used plastic bottles into cloth, while in Vietnam, this is where they cut and sew for their actual activewear. To prove that their products are ethically made, they show their certificates on their website, wherein it states that they do not condone unfair wages and forced labor, and also that their materials that are used for their products are safe and not filled with harmful chemicals. As for the sources of their materials, the used plastic bottles are gathered or managed by communities in Taiwan. Most of Girlfriend Collective's collections are made out of discarded fish nets that were collected from oceans and converted to yarn and nylon by Econil. This brand shows their commitment with transparency and the environment. They use their passion for fashion as a way to recycle millions of plastic bottles and clean the ocean while recycling old fish nets to create recyclable products which reduces the use of harmful chemicals. From finding the right manufacturer to creating their products, all of these required plenty of time and money. Despite it being costly and time-consuming, Girlfriend Collective never failed to show their determination and commitment in producing the best quality products while protecting our environment. In the Philippines, two of the most disposed materials are sacks and plastic bags. In a day, about 1 million plastic bags are being thrown away. Plastic bags are very common here because it is cheaper and very much convenient, but it does not decompose easily. Yet trillions of plastic bags are used and discarded yearly. Sacks are mostly used for transporting agricultural products. Sacks are very much recyclable, like numerous other materials, but are still discarded easily by many individuals. Craftcha was founded by a Filipina named Marlita Manicad. She shared that what inspired her to create such a brand was their experience with Typhoon Ondoy back in 2009. The goals of Craftcha is to spread awareness of cloth waste management by minimizing the use of plastic bags. Craftcha offers tote bags, pants, reusable masks, and many more everyday items. They gather discarded flour sacks, cloth scraps, and outdated clothing and turn them into everyday items, accessories, and clothing pieces. Craftcha offers affordable products by upcycling discarded materials. They promote sustainable fashion and make sure that their customers will be comfortable with their products as well. All Craftcha products are handcrafted, which means that it requires a lot of time and can be labor intensive. But this just shows how much effort they put for each product that they create. Unfortunately, Craftcha does not have an official site, but are very much active in their social media pages. But having an official site may help customers have a better understanding on how the products they consume are created. Fortunately, day by day, environmental awareness has seemingly been increasing. Plenty of countries are now recognizing these environmental issues that we are facing, resulting to influencing numerous individuals into practicing proper waste management and reducing the use of single-use plastic, which are all beneficial not just for us and our environment, but for the future generations as well. Girlfriend Collective and Craftcha are just two of many eco-friendly businesses and industries that offer trendy products while promoting sustainability and advocates environmental awareness.
Thank you very much, Mayumi, for that wonderful presentation. And it's very interesting, really, how sometimes adversity, no, creates or begets opportunities. And that presentation of yours highlighted that fact. No? From the tragedy of Typhoon Ondoy, people were inspired. In particular, the founder of Craftcha was inspired to embark on this sustainable journey. And hopefully more and more people like her will become inspired to go green and engage in sustainable businesses and sustainable practices. At this point, we'd like to move on to some questions for our student presenters. Okay, you can still chat your questions while we are having our open forum. keep them coming. You can chat in our live stream, or you can chat directly in our Zoom chat here. If any of the audience would like to actually say something or share their thoughts with us, you are also very much welcome to do so. Okay, let's see. Okay, from our extensive list of questions. Okay, again, these are questions for our student presenters. No, let's see. This one goes out to Sir Ulrich, the speaker about sustainable toys. No? As grade 12 students, Sir Ulrich, are you there?
Serious.
Okay, good. So, Sir Ulrich, this question is for you. How will you promote sustainable and green toys among our youth, especially during this time of pandemic? How would you do this as a grade 12 student?
I can say as a grade 12 student, I don't really have much influence. I'm not famous, but we don't really have to be famous to have an impact on sustainability, as many sustainable projects are really just focused on small communities. Let's say, for example, we start a small scale program to get materials such as broken slippers or cans, bottles in that community, and then we encourage them take part in activities. The children, I mean, take part in activities such as like a demo of us trying to make toys with those materials. And but yeah, during the pandemic, we can't really do that. So I can say now we can encourage parents of young children or the children themselves to join seminars or talks like this online to talk about sustainable methods of creating their own toys, or perhaps um, making some with their household materials. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Ulrich. Indeed, the pandemic is challenging us in so many ways, one of which is challenging us to perhaps notice more our housemates, our parents, guardians, our relatives in the house. And perhaps this is an opportunity to explore ways of playing that don't really need plastic. Okay, there are interactive games. There are the traditional games of Filipinos that many students now are not really aware of. There are board games that require only a few materials and not plastic. Okay, and of course there's a lot of material online that we can use, or simply we share stories. No? Sharing stories is a form of play. Yes, and of course, Sir Ulrich, as a grade 12 student, you are already doing a lot by engaging in this type of presentation, in this type of show in which you share your advocacy with our audience. Thank you very much. And I'm trying to rotate the questions. No, let's have one for Miss Brianna. Miss Brianna, this goes out for you, our student presenter on e-waste. In your opinion, do you think our country has a low or high awareness about proper e-waste management? In what ways do you think we can further e-waste awareness?
Uh, Thank you for that question. I honestly think that the Philippines has very low knowledge, has a lack of knowledge on e-waste management. Because when I started researching for the topic, like what does the Philippines do if there are laws or whatsoever, it's actually the first time I've heard of it. And yeah, um, regarding the spreading awareness on e-waste management, maybe since there should really be people who should start like a movement so that more and more people can know about what's the problem by like doing this talk or like promoting posters whatsoever about a certain problem in in the country. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Brianna. Indeed, the Philippines has still a long way to go when it comes to providing its ordinary people, its citizens, uh, opportunities to be responsible with e-waste. If you want something to, if you have something to dispose of that's electronic in a responsible way, it's not as easy as going out and just finding the proper bin, no, in the street. It really, we really have to exert the effort of looking up companies, looking up recycling companies that offer such services, and oftentimes we have to make the journey. We have to go there ourselves and deposit or give them or hand them our e-waste. But such is the price if we want to have a better earth. And like HEDCen always says, having a better earth begins with having better people. Okay, so I guess it's up to each and every one of us, okay, those who are listening here, to try to make that commitment, to go that extra mile in finding ways of disposing of our e-waste, our electronic waste. Okay, so let's pick up a question for our third student presenter who talked about sustainable fashion. Okay, so Miss Mayumi Barcena, this one is for you. Amidst the pandemic, how will you be able to promote sustainable fashion, most especially in our country? No? So now that you are confined to quarters, so to speak, how would you help spread awareness on sustainable fashion? Miss Barcena?
Okay. Uh, Philippines is a country where social media is widely used not just by kids nor teenagers, but also adults. So everyone has access to social media. And I think social media is the most significant factor in promoting trends, most especially in fashion. So in the country where we live in, there's a lot of influencers that share brands and deals wherein they show what sustainable fashion can provide and offer to all of us. So I think during pandemic, the best way we can promote this type of clothing is by sharing what we learn and sharing the brands that we know through social media. Thank you.
Yes, I guess the phone is now every man's best friend and woman. No, we are often, even before the pandemic, I recall a particular study I read somewhere that a good percentage of married men check their phones first before they check on their wife. Okay, and I guess nowadays during the pandemic, that is even more pronounced. We are always on our phones. We are almost always online when we wake up, before we go to bed, even in the middle of the night when we hear that ping, that notification, we check it. So I guess we have to take advantage of this quote unquote addiction to promote what we believe in, to promote what we think is right. And yes, as Ms. Persena shared with us, sustainable fashion is one of the things you and I can really work on for a better earth. You know, everyone needs clothing, okay? Although it might be very liberating to go around without, but we need it and might as well be responsible in our choice of what to wear. And and if we want people to really make a difference, then we don't just wear it like Miss Barcena is doing right now. We talk about it. Yes, we really have to voice our opinions. We have to make people hear us and convince people about how these sustainable choices are already available. Okay, we don't have to go to the moon, but yes, we do have to try to go for that extra effort in making sure the clothing we wear is responsibly made. Thank you very much for that answer, Ms. Persena. And we encourage people to keep on chatting. And our student presenters, and I will guarantee this as their teacher, our student presenters will compose replies for you. So if you could also send us your email just in case we are unable to answer your question live. Okay, let's rotate and go back to our first speaker, Sir Ulrich. We have a question for you. Okay, let me see. Okay, this is a personal question, Sir Ulrich. We can think of it as a challenge. Have you yourself practiced obtaining, producing, or promoting sustainable toys? Okay. If yes, how? Okay. What concrete plan do you have in mind for practicing such in the future? Okay. If you haven't really done it yet, when do you plan to begin? Sir Ulrich, your thoughts on this, please.
Okay, so as a kid, I honestly no. As a kid, I never really was one to play with toys and didn't bother to have them. But for the future, though, I suppose if I ever would want toys again, because right now I'm still a fan of Lego, I'd try to buy from companies such as Green Toys or other similar companies that use recycled materials. As for promoting this, I do not have to contribute or create movements really that promote it because I can continue to do talks like this to raise awareness as people being aware of the harm of toys that come from toxic plastics or toxic recycled materials. It would almost certainly make them lean towards cleaner alternatives. As for when I do that, probably soon, because or maybe in the upcoming years, as right now I'm already doing it by making the viewers more aware of something so harmless such as a toy can be actually so harmful. Yun
Thank
lang.
you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you very much, Sir Ulrich, for those words. And I would like to emphasize the fact that when you were young, you were already having sustainable play. You mentioned that you were not really into toys, and I believe that's a very important lifestyle. The way we raise our kids nowadays, of course, there's not for everyone. No, there's not a generalization, but many families tend to buy a lot of toys for their kids, and we end up filling the house or several boxes with toys that are either slightly used or not wanted anymore, and so they're in storage. But if you only think about it, we could have saved a lot of money. We could have saved a lot of resources by simply refusing to buy these toys for our kids and engaging them instead in other ways. Storytelling is a very good way to engage the imagination and to have fun. Learning to play a musical instrument is another, or simply walking, no, along the streets, trying to identify birds. Okay, that's a very healthy way of spending the time. So play does not really mean playing with Hot Wheels cars or plastic toys. So play comes in many forms, and I think that is what we need nowadays for our young children. And yes, definitely, Sir Ulrich, you are doing a lot already, and 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 for sure you are already one person who will advocate this for the rest of your life. And imagine if you can influence your friends to do the same, and your friends will also advocate, then you will create this ripple effect. Very wonderful. Okay, moving on to Miss Brianna Rodriguez. Okay, Miss Brianna, a question for you. How many, so this is like a personal challenge as well. How many electronic gadgets have you disposed? Did you do so responsibly? Okay. If not, then how do you plan to do this more responsibly in the future? Perhaps we can treat this question, Ms. Rodriguez, as an advice to our viewers. I'm sure many of our viewers right now have unwanted electronic devices at home. Maybe chargers that don't work anymore, or old phones that simply don't function as well, and they would like to dispose. So maybe you can give them some advice regarding this, what to do, where to go with their e-waste. Miss Brianna?
Uh, as of the moment, I cannot recall Ay, joke lang. I cannot recall wherein we dispose electronic devices and their accessories. It's just here at home. But in the near future, since I have much more knowledge about how to dispose, um, maybe I can also share to people where the proper like disposal bins are located and how to handle them properly in order to not add harm to the environment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Brianna. I think you mentioned particular companies in your presentation. You can look it up and share it in the chat right now for our viewers. You mentioned several companies that our viewers who would like to act more responsibly can approach. Huh? And if you can give us that list in the chat, it would be very helpful as a waypoint, as a guide for the members of our audience who would like to be more responsible with their e-waste. Okay, we have 2 minutes to go. Unfortunately, we have much more questions. Let's have one last from Miss Persena. Okay, Miss Persena, the presenter on sustainable fashion. Okay, are we actually using plastics to make clothes in the Philippines?
Um,
How would you balance fashion and economics in this sense? So I sort of cheated there and combined two questions. No? So are we actually practicing? Is there any company that's actually doing this in the Philippines using plastics, uh, discarded plastics to make clothes? And could you again recap if this is an economically feasible practice? Because maybe uh, in the future, some of our young members in the audience would like to engage in this kind of business. Miss Mayumi?
okay, so yes, actually there are brands that create clothing using plastic. But here in the Philippines, what I've encountered with the brands, mostly the brands here are using or basing their clothing out of waste materials in previous clothing as well, or old scraps. And like Craftcha, the one that is being sold here in the Philippines, they use sacks. So here in the Philippines, I guess there are not much of plastic based clothing due to certain machines that we don't have yet. But what I am aware of is that most plastics used here are being used for mostly bags and wallets and umbrellas. So it is still somehow related to fashion, but not much on clothing. And I guess for balancing economics and fashion, for me, I always live by the word quality over quantity. I think fashion is an investment, not just in terms of the money of individuals, but also for the environment. So I think that sustainable fashion serves a purpose here in the Philippines and it will be properly balanced if we can instill this in the minds of everyone here in the Philippines, mostly the youth, wherein we can use our platforms and our voices as tools and as instruments for us to educate them about sustainable fashion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Bersena, for those meaningful words. I'd like to wrap up our evening with our student presenters. And once again, thank you, audience, for participating with your questions. And keep them coming. We still have a few moments. I am a talkative person. Okay. And if you're willing, you could share with us your email so that our student participants can email you their answers. Okay. It's sort of a commitment on our part to really try to reach as many as we can with this talk show. Okay, with this HEDCen Talks series and more to come. Okay, we have other series talks, HEDCen Talks series to come, featuring younger students this time, and that's something to watch out for. Okay, let's wrap up the evening with some takeaway words. Takeaway is referring to the most important parts of your presentations, student presenters. Maybe a few words on what you want your audience to remember, okay, as they leave us tonight. Sir Ulrich, could we begin with yours, please?
Hello, sir. Could you repeat? I got choppy.
Yes, okay. Sir Ulrich, would you like to say a few words as a takeaway? What would you like your audience to remember about your environmental advocacy on sustainable toys?
For me, my parting message would be to just remain aware of what is in products that may affect our health, not just in plastics, because, yeah. And for us to advocate always for greener alternatives that use sustainable methods in doing so. That is all for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir Ulrich. And your parting words, Miss Brianna. By the way, Miss Brianna has shared in the chat, okay, the companies that you can approach. So I'd like to quickly enumerate them for the benefit of our readers who are very much willing to practice responsible e-waste disposal. So you have HMR Super Plus Bodega, Project One Phone. I know you have this in your chat, but I want to really underline E-Waste Management Philippines. And there is an e-waste project in UP, University of the Philippines, and EnviroCycle Philippines Incorporated. Okay, Miss Rodriguez, Miss Brianna, if you can share with us your parting words.
Um, I hope you're able to think twice about unused electronics and their accessories. We enjoy using them every day, but once they get broken, remember that we always have the option to get them repaired unless, the damage is really severe. We don't need to makisama sa uso if our current phones are working well. Thank you.
Correct. I must agree and I must repeat that, no? Yung pakikisama sa uso is a very earth-damaging practice. Okay? We really have to stop that, no? We really have to stop the mania about buying the latest all the time. Okay? Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Rodriguez. And Ms. Barcena, your parting words?
I'd like to say thank you to everyone for watching our HEDCen Talks. Sustainability and eco-friendly practices and productions are things that we should really consider in our daily lives. I hope that with our presentations, we were able to influence and instill lessons to all of you. This talk was an opportunity for us to promote environmental awareness, and we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Thank you.
Once again, this is Sir H, the mentor for the Life Sciences Research track of HEDCen's Senior High School. And we'd like to also thank the assistance of Mr. Joshua, okay, who is a student of Small Enterprise Development. So HEDCen has 3 very interesting senior high school tracks. And these students are trailblazing in their own way. They are promoting their advocacies and they are working towards a much better earth. Thank you once again. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening, and watch out for more HEDCen Talks. This is Sir H wishing you a good night, good evening, and hopefully we see each other